Good morning and welcome to the presentation of the 61st International Art Exhibition of La Biennale di Venezia, which will open to the public on Saturday, May the 9th, and will remain open until the 22nd of November 2026. I am Cristiana Costanzo, head of the press office of Architecture, Visual Arts and Historical Archive Department of La Biennale. I am moved and excited. There are so many of you. We are live streaming from Sala delle Colonnne of Giustinian, the home of La Biennale. I also extend warm greetings to all those who are following us online from all over the world. With their participation, they contribute every year to give a meaning and depth to this event. A special greeting goes to the representatives of the press. With your work, you interpret and disseminate the contents of La Biennale, fueling a debate that extends for months well beyond the physical borders of Venice. Your attention for La Biennale is not only important, but necessary. We parted last May the 27th, a few days after the death of our curator, Kouoh. On that date, La Biennale announced, with the full support of her family, the decision to carry out the exhibition according to the project she had conceived in order to preserve, enhance, and disseminate her ideas and the work she had accomplished up to that moment. Appointed as artistic director of the visual arts sector in November 2024, at the time of her death, Kouoh had already developed the curatorial project for the 61st exhibition, a project that it was fully defined in its theoretical axis, artistic choices, editorial structure, and the exhibition layout. Deciding to create the exhibition according to the vision she had outlined was not only an act of institutional responsibility, but also a commitment to preserve her thought, to preserve her strength, and allow it to continue to generate meaning. The title chosen in minor keys that you see in the image, as indicated in the curatorial text sent by Koyo to the president of La Biennale in April 2025, accurately conveys the intellectual and poetic stance of this edition. This project has continued thanks to a collective work and great dedication. An international team chosen by Koyo herself took on the task of translating her vision into reality with responsibility and rigor. Remote work through online meetings, combined with in-person seminars held in Venice in May and October 2025 and in Dakar in June 2025, allowed the team to work together with La Biennale, despite being spread over several continents, creating an articulated and deeply shared process in which each contribution enriched the collective construction of the exhibition, calling the structure of La Biennale to a special commitment in the definition phase of the project, involving in particular the visual arts department. Koyo's team will now tell the story of the work done in recent months and illustrate the structure, themes, and artists in this edition. I therefore invite here on stage, in this order, Rasha Salti, Gabe Beckhurst-Feige, Marie-Hélène Pereira, the three of them as advisors. Siddhartha Mitter, as editor-in-chief, and Rory Tsapai as a research assistant. Starting from where we stopped on May the 27th in this room, their contributions will start from the reading of the curatorial statement by Kouoh in minor keys, to retrace again together her vision, her lines of thought, and the theoretical horizon that guided her work, and that today we want to share in its totality. After that, the team will present in detail the structure and concrete articulation of the project, a complex, multi-layered work that not only reflects the project for an exhibition, but rather is Kouoh's intellectual and human legacy. You have the floor. Fate.
Drop your shoulders. Close your eyes. This is an invitation to encounter these words in the immediate physical, meteorological, ambient, and karmic conditions in which they meet you. To shift to a slower gear and tune into the frequencies of the minor keys. Because though often lost in the anxious cacophony of the present chaos raging through the world, the music continues. The songs of those producing beauty in spite of tragedy, the tunes of the fugitives recovering from the ruins, the harmonies of those repairing wounds and worlds. There is a reason, after all, that some people wish to colonize the moon and others dance before it as an ancient friend. James Baldwin, 1972. The minor key in music alludes both to the structure of a song and to its emotional effects. It is a rich idea, so rich that it quickly overflows its technical definition and spills with metaphor. It summons moods, the blues, the call and response, the morna, the second line, the lament, the allegory, the whisper. The minor keys refuse orchestral bombast and goose-step military marches, and come alive in the quiet tones, the lower frequencies, the hums, the consolations of poetry, all portals of improvisation to the elsewhere and the otherwise. The minor keys ask for listening that calls on the emotions and sustains them in return.
The minor keys are also the small islands, worlds amid oceans with distinct and endlessly rich ecosystems, social lives that are articulated, for better and worse, within much larger political forms and ecological stakes. Here the evocation of the key and the island extends to an archipelago of oases, gardens, courtyards, compounds, lofts, dance floors, the other worlds that artists make, the intimate and convivial universes that refresh and sustain even in terrible times, indeed especially in terrible times. Look at the Creole garden. You put all species on such a little lick of land, avocados, lemons, yams, sugar canes, plus 30 or 40 other species on this bit of land, that doesn't go more than 50 feet up the side of the hill. They protect each other. In the great circle, everything is in everything else. Edouard Glissant, 1993. These are the cues for an exhibition tuned into the minor keys, an exhibition that invites listening to the persistent signals of earth and life, connecting to soul frequencies. If in music the minor keys are often associated with strangeness, melancholy and sorrow, here their joy, solace, hope and transcendence manifest as well. In the minor keys, sound and sensation are grounding. They hold the cadences, melodies, and silences of resonant worlds that gather and create together a polyphonous assembly of art, convening and communing in convivial collectivity, beaming across the void of alienation and the crackle of conflict.
The 61st edition of the Biennale Arte is grounded in a deep belief in artists as the vital interpreters of the social and psychic condition and catalyst of new relations and possibilities. The exhibition's composition is formed by artistic practices that open portals, that refresh and nourish, that prompt relation and relationship, that advance concept and forms through networks and schools, understood freely and informally. The intended effect scrambles cohesion and dissonance in the manner of a free jazz ensemble, or perhaps, at the scale of the Biennale Arte, a festival of ensembles with a common premise, that poetics liberate and people make beauty together. Through relation, sharing and transcendence, the artists and practices that operate in this spirit, like jazz, across methods, scales, senses and forms, propose to visitors an exhibitional experience that is more sensory than didactic, renewing rather than exhausting, and fortifying for the work ahead. Through a visual and meditative procession, the exhibition prompts all senses to interconnect and meander from one universe to the other, rendering visible the possibilities that reside in the in-between spaces and beyond the portals. Quote, "There is no choice but to tune in like jazzmen to these imperative mutations. The jazzman constantly meditates on the unpredictable, stands within it according to the laws of polyrhythm, and improvises breathtaking moments. We, small island Caribbeans, are not ready, but we have this resource. The change will have to be so profound that we will no doubt have to add to the knowledge of jazz the old totemisms, animisms, analogisms, and other metaphysics too summarily discarded. These old world poems are already precious scores." Patrick Chamoiseau.
In this spirit, the 61st International Art Exhibition of La Biennale di Venezia intends neither a litany of commentary on world events, nor an inattention or escape from compounding and continuous intersecting crises. Rather, it proposes a radical reconnection with art's natural habitat and role in society. That is the emotional, the visual, the sensory, the affective, the subjective. In minor keys are sequences of exhilarating journeys that address the sensate and the affective, inviting visitors to marvel, meditate, dream, revel, reflect, and commune in realms where time is not corporate property, nor at the mercy of relentlessly accelerated productivity. After all, it is clear by now that the enduring time of capital and empire maligned local, indigenous, and terrestrial knowledges as chimeric, and dismissed co-constitutive artistic practices as artisanal, intended for decoration or devotional rituals. The civilizing mission flattens all with condescending contempt. And in the contemporary era, entire societies and ecologies are regarded as collateral damage in the headstrong pursuit of growth, supported by ruthlessness and greed. In refusing the spectacle of horror, the time has come to listen to the minor keys, to tune in sotto voce to the whispers, to the lower frequencies, to find the oases, the islands, where the dignity of all living beings is safeguarded.
The exhibition posits that such radical shifts are taking place, indeed, have been underway all along in the minor keys. And the artists and poets and performers and filmmakers whom the exhibition will convene are grounded in their commitments to realizing them. Artists are channels to and between the minor keys, and listening to, rather than speaking for them, is at the core of the curatorial conceit. In Minor Keys stands as a collective score, composed together with artists who have built universes of imagination, artists who work at the boundaries of form, and whose practices can be thought of as intricate melodies to be heard both collectively and on their own terms. These are artists whose practices seamlessly bleed into society. Artists who accommodate daily life as part of a logical and aesthetically consistent relation of parts. Artists who are exceedingly generous and hospitable to life. We quote Toni Morrison, "In our myths, in our songs, that's where the seeds are. It is not possible to constantly hone on the crisis. You have to have the love, and you have to have the magic. That's also life." Toni Morrison, 1977.
Under the watch of a mango tree, music came before the keys, and before music came poetry. Koyo was not the sort to memorize verse to recite in an assembly, but poetry was to her the guiding light of a curatorial gesture, the raw material for minting a title, and the fodder for structuring a conceit. Like griots, soothsayers, or mediums, poets see beyond eyesight, measure time beyond calendar conventions. They chiefly consider deeds, forgive failures, and believe in repair. Koyo shepherded us while crossing the globe, and after months of meeting online to discuss artists, practices, and projects, she convened us in Dakar at the base camp she established with grace and wit, namely Raw Material Company. We gathered in April for an intense week of work, from morning to evening, without respite. Recalling that week is like remembering a rehearsal for a musical performance. She was our conductor, and while each of us arrived with a finely tuned instrument, it took those few days for us to tune to one another. She composed as we improvised. The intensity of our collective focus was taxing, but it was also exhilarating. So exhilarating that we felt the license to dream, to fantasize, to soar. We worked in the courtyard of Raw Material Company, under the sheltering shade of the straw roof. A prolific mango tree, its branches cumbered from the weight of ripening fruit, watched. The first morning, as Koyo stepped into the courtyard, beaming with her inimitable smile, she picked up the mangoes that had fallen, washed them, and bit into one gleefully. The second morning, emboldened by her delight, we imitated her. It seemed ungracious to refuse the tree's offering. After that, our discussions were often interrupted by the thudding sound of mangoes falling in the courtyard. Or perhaps we became attentive to the fruits falling and to the tree. We noted that fruit fell when the name of an artist was spoken. This happened often enough that when a name was spoken and no fruit fell, we paused in expectation. This anecdote will stay with us until we each leave to meet Koyo. Like all anecdotes, it points to the ineffable, that which escapes logic, language, systems, category, the dimension beyond reason in which we forge meaning from our lived experience. Opening oneself to the ineffable is tuning one's senses to the minor keys. That week in Dakar was the edifying week that defined the 61st International Art Exhibition. We mapped practices and projects. We identified resonances, affinities, synchronicities, and conversations. We extracted motifs to structure the exhibition and pillars on which to draw it. Notions like enchantment, seeding, commoning, generative practices that invite collectivities emerged organically. On the last day of our convention, after reckoning that we had accomplished the most daunting milestone, Koyo assigned missions to each of us. The exhibition had found its manifest forms. It was no longer intention nor abstraction. We could hear the music she so gracefully composed with us under the generous guardianship of the mango tree.
The 111 invited participants of this exhibition, among them individual artists, collaborative duos, collectives, and artist-led organizations, hail from many geographies and regions. But rather than offer statistics, we underline Koyo's interest in resonance, affinity, and imagining confluence where artists may have worked without direct acquaintance. In looking to artists working in Salvador, Dakar, San Juan, Beirut, Paris, or Nashville, for example, Koyo sought to envision how their ingenuity, breadth of material experimentation, and visionary ideas bear connections to other artists and movements in simultaneity. In this spirit, In Minor Keys expands upon Koyo's relational geography of encounters with artists over her lifetime. Koyo saw several conceptual motifs guiding the exhibition. These were not abstractly determined, but rather sifted from a reservoir of art that acts deeply on the soul and mind. One of Koyo's words for artists who worked in this way was galactic. They brought into focus a compositional method for the exhibition, which is not organized according to sections, but rather in respect of undercurrent priorities. Among these are shrines, in which prominence is given to the practices of two lodestar artists while exceeding a retrospective impulse. Processional assemblies is another. Enchantment in the face of cynicism about what art can do. Spiritual and physical rest, opened up by the oases, the keys or small islands of artists' universes. And finally, Koyo's commitment to artist-centered institution building or schools, in which energy and resource is directed towards a social purpose. These strands leap from practice to practice, snaking an intergenerational path to build across the sites of In Minor Keys. The motifs carried working titles with the understanding that they would develop in time, yet it wasn't long before they reached the shores of our collaborators, reverberating with reference points that Koyo had shared. Toni Morrison's Beloved and Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude were two such touchstones that Koyo offered as inspiration and gift. Texts that connect in their evocation of thresholds between life worlds and temporalities. In Beloved, Seth's decision to remain at 124 Bluestone Road, a house haunted by her child who died at Seth's hands to spare her from a life of enslavement, sees the protagonist dare to give form to a history when remembering seemed unwise. Or consider the image in 100 Years of a trickle of blood that crosses domestic thresholds, turns corners, and moves across the parlor to arrive at the feet of the character Ursula, carrying details of the adjacent yet distinct worlds of her neighbors. In both novels, magical realism deepens rather than distracts from an emotional register. Wolf Architects in Cape Town were appointed by Koyo in early 2025 to realize the design and scenography for In Minor Keys. Following these literary cues, the team honed in on the transformative spatial power of the threshold as a portal to alternative comprehension and experiences if we follow the invitation there. The intelligence of their design is its generosity to each artist's universe and to the sensorial experience that can open up between constellations of practices. In the central pavilion of the Giardini and in the Arsenale, thresholds are marked by sweeping indigo banners that meet the rafters and graze the floor, calming the senses at the denouement of one phase and signaling the opening of another.
Sala, which leads visitors to the core of the central pavilion, announces the vocabulary of the shrines, which Koyo envisaged as tributes to two incandescent world makers, Issa Samb, 1945-2017, and Beverly Buchanan, 1940-2015. An artist, poet, playwright, and co-founder of the revolutionary collective Laboratoire Agitat in Dakar, Samb was an enduring presence, mentor, and inspiration for Koyo, who honored his practice and life philosophy in international projects. Buchanan's art making, which Koyo encountered more recently and that moved her deeply, encompass subtle and confronting readings of locations and communities through anti-monumental approaches to land art and public sculpture, which she often placed in sites of charged memory. Both artists recognize the significance of art as generative, surpassing mere objecthood and evading conventional preservation. There was a fugitivity to their methods, confounding expectations through their multifarious bodies of work and operating in spaces that didn't always embrace their abundant thought. Koyo described Samb's practice as, quote, certainly comprehensible, yet at the same time it is cryptic, evanescent, and elusive of simplistic or superficial interpretative frameworks, end of quote. Prominent presentations of Buchanan and Samb will build across a simultaneity of forms and actions, and extend to devoted sections in the In Minor Keys catalog. The shrines, with their associations of ecstatic visitation, testaments to love, and an absent presence, what the word Saujaji ventures close to, take on greater significance and responsibility following Koyo's passing. The motif of procession draws on the choreographies of self-organized assemblies, moving across carnivals and similar gatherings across the Afro-Atlantic world through the practices of Big Chief Demon Melancon, Nick Cave, Alvaro Barrington, Daniel Lynn Ramos, and Ebony G. Patterson, among others, to seasonal and spiritual celebration and mourning. These are embodied gatherings where joining the crowd rather than observing is requisite and implied. Their purpose may range from circadian celebration to rituals formed in diasporan centers and peripheries, or in communion between the living and the ancestors. Koyo desired for this exhibition to refuse solid walls where possible. The works were to stand in their power, rather than be brought into relief by their backdrop. The intention was to propose a way of journeying through the exhibition. With Wolf Architects, we extrapolated a processional vocabulary, which as a result imbues the artworks and their standing supports with animacy. Moving through the exhibition, visitors are invited to become part of this assembly. Carnival also creates temporal disjuncture from an incumbent system, a stitch in time where relations of power are momentarily subverted and scrambled, the carnivalesque. Drawn into the realm of art practice, this subversion of power agitates and lateralizes art history, classical literature, and archetypes in the work of Johannes Pokela, Taminguen, Burlebezwe Siwani, Sami Baloji, and Gottfried Donkor, among others. A similar disjuncture, productive and liberatory, is exercised on visual and material histories by artists including Boubou de la Madeleine, Yoshiko Shimada, Alan Felan, Walid Rad, Sawangwose Yangwe, Rayed Yassin, Pio Abad, Avi Mograbi, Nina Katchadourian, Alice Maher and Rachel Fallon, Guadalupe Rosales, Kerry Schneider, Tiona Nekia McLauden, Tuan Andrunguen, Sofia Galisa Muriente, Natalia Lasale Morillo, Kaloki Nyamai, Marcia Kure, Tanya Peterson, as well as the project Arms Ek Avid Aeon, Nancy Brooks Brody, Joy Episala, Zoe Leonard, Kerry Yamaoka, Fizz Pussy, and Joey Tang. Using methods that range from the trans-historical, speculative, irreverent, and rigorously exacting, they perform work that is less archival than counter-archival. In some cases, capering with symbols, icons, and styles to amplify the antagonisms of dominance and pay tribute to unsung heroes and heroines. The focus on schools points to key ecosystems and networks built and sustained by artists, and which carry a clear sense of both localism and transnationalism in generative symbiosis. These are represented by Denniston Hill, Southern Catskills in New York, Black Star Lines, Kumasi, Ghana, Gas Foundation, Lagos, Ijebu-Ode, Nigeria, Lugaradudas, Cali, Colombia, Nairobi Contemporary Art Institute, Nairobi, Kenya, and Raw Material Company, Dakar, Senegal. What connects these homegrown institutions is an ethos to convene, share knowledge to say a while, to take a part, to sow seeds of intent and build centers that proliferate without the intervention of commercial markets. As an edifying and influential grassroots school builder, Koyo sought for the exhibition to make space for those hybrid havens that are a font of learning and creative transmission, and have played a pivotal role in shaping artists. In developing the exhibition, the nomenclature of schools took hold for this organization because, regardless of whether they provide diplomas or not, they are fundamental places of knowledge and regeneration. Their presentations, nestled within the wider constellation of participants, are inherently collaborative and will encompass the work of other artists, but the organizing framework is the school's ethos and defining methods.
The plantation, the settlement, the ruinous flood, the quarry, the fire, and the profound memory of geology that absorbs their violences reach across the work of Dawn Dido, Joanna Hadji Thomas and Khalil Jorej, Nolan Oswald Dennis, Senzeni Maracela, Adebunmi Badebo, Bernie Seal, Alfredo Jar, Kemangwa Lehulere, Kennedy Yanko, and Tokwase Dyson, among others. They are conjured in Annalie Davis's prayer to the extinct Eskimo curlew, last seen in her native Barbados, in the elements at risk of disappearance from Palestine's natural realm that Vera Tamari iconicizes for perennity, or in Michael Jew's millennia-old crinoids, which incarnate lives mineralized under the weight of time, whispering secret stories. In these instances, artists employ radical pedagogies geared to liberation, to engage with seismic events that refuse to settle or go quietly, and contend with their trace. One such liberatory space revisited by artists in the exhibition is the Creole Garden, a site of enclosure, but also self-reliance, and its counterpart, the courtyard. These spaces, where material and imaginative freedom arise dialectically amid constraint, have been the subject of rich analytic and poetic inquiry, notably in Black and Caribbean studies. Within the exhibition, they emerge as a guiding concept through both indoor and outdoor presentations in the work of Ireson Heraclito, Edouard Duval-Carrier, Wangechi Mutu, Maria Magdalena Campos Pons and Kamal Malak, Were Were Leaking, Florence Lazar, Otobong Kanga, Sabian Baumann, Theo Eshetu, Carolina Caicedo, Karsten Holler, and Sandra Knecht. From Duval-Carrier's Vodou Pantheon to Heraclito's Junto, many gardens are nurtured in the tradition of Creolite. For the Martinician poet Monchoachi, the traditional Lakou is considered as the place of exchange, the place from which speech unfolds from difference and keeps it gathered and in harmony. In this spirit, the exhibition cultivates both experiential and metaphorical gardens as places of repose and reconnection. In the Giardini, Linda Goodbryant's still life sets the ground for a new farm, tended to by formerly incarcerated women throughout the duration of the exhibition. These instantiations of the Creole garden orient us to the non-human living, the world of plants, waters, winds, animals, birds, and spirits which inhabit all spaces. As Warda Shabir's paintings hail the lusciousness of flora, Hala Shuker's kinetic compositions draw inspiration from their microscopic makeup, and Uriel Orlo tracks their errancy across the continents. Can an exhibition on the scale of the International Exhibition of the Biennale offer a place to rest your body, as well as refuse the encyclopedic impulse to compulsively see and name? In the poem, The Unknown Hour, Ben Okri writes, "We stayed in the garden long enough for celestial history to ripen, the slow completion of the cosmic task." What ripens in the decision to stay a while in the presence of an artwork, to listen to the layering of voice, or to move with the projections that dance across a painting. Reminders to rest, slow down, and breathe deeply from the gut were vital to Koyo. The introduction of rest spaces to the exhibition will enable contemplative pause. But this call is internalized as well in a range of installations that invite reverie, solemnity, devotion, and wonder, including those by Mohammed Ziraman, Khaled Sabsabi, Colleen Smith, Kader Atia, Laurie Anderson, Pauline Oliveros, Manuel Mathieu, Tsai Ming Lang, Eric Baudelaire, Nicholas Klobo, Dan Lee, Guadalupe Maravilla, and Himali Singh Swan and David Swan Tapisser. These projects invite slowing down through the wash of the multisensory. A song, a smell, a touch, a low meditative hum, a repeated physical motion, a fermata, or pause in a written score. All these become prompts to tune into granular changes within and around us, and thus, as Pauline Oliveros put it, become changed by the listening. Koyo was drawn to practices that manifested these motifs and alchemized them beyond thematization in the mode that she often called enchantment. This expanse of feeling presents itself at shifting scales in the poetics of daily life. Thus, artists like Bodhisize Kingelez, Akinbode Akinbiyi, Eustaquio Neves, Rose Salan, Mohamed Joha, Victoria Irongesi Tudondian, and Philip Aguirre I Otegi address rhythms and physical and metaphysical infrastructures of urban existence, while the slippage between quotidian, natural, and cosmic scales manifests itself in the practices of artists including Billy Zangewa, Sorab Hura, Georgina Maxim, Ranti Bam, Bonnie Devine, Mahabo Makula Helen Sebidi, Rana El Nemer, Amina Saudi Ayit Kai, Saini Awakamara, Tabitha Rezer, Leonard Pongo, Kambui Olujimi, Hagar Ophir, Celia Vasquez-Yui, Alexa Kumiko Hatanaka, Leonilda Gonzalez, and Rajni Pereira and Marigold Santos. As visitors move through in minor keys, they encounter a number of oases that evoke, for instance, Issa Sam's former courtyard, La Cour, on Rue Jules Ferry in downtown Dakar, Marcel Duchamp's last studio, where he worked for 20 years on the same installation, Were Liking's village Ki Mbok in Abidjan, Yowie Rio's Unlearning Space on Jeju Island, or the 1990s Zurich itinerant network of rogue parties organized under the name of Parfumerie with Clarissa Herbst and Dominique Rust. These installations involve different media and thematics, but together they convoke the exhibition's atmosphere. Koyo's preoccupation is also her legacy, a deep concern and investment in artistic practices that are generative and generous, that invite collaboration, alchemize, and radiate back to the ways that we are human together.
The performances of In Minor Keys center the body as a site of knowledge and memory, as well as a political vessel for collective resistance and healing. The call is to breathe and listen to the music that resides in the water, air, fire, and earth. Movement, sounds, forms of wandering, and other poetic gestures will counter proscenium staging, instead directly connecting with the spaces of the exhibition, its visitors, and extending into the gardens. A procession of poets will take place in the Giardini. It's inspired by Koyo's poetry caravan, which is a voyage that she undertook with 9 African poets from Dakar to Timbuktu in 1999. The performance honors her memory, and it opens a space for poetry and storytelling. It pays homage to the griots, those who seek the source, those who, in Koyo's own words, have carried salt and gold on the backs of the camels, in the desert, and in the canoes, in fulfillment of the human dream to spread the wings of knowledge and power. They joined those who, for centuries, carried the stories of the people and their lives. En route from Dakar to Timbuktu, these poets recited and incanted to comprehend the terrain that they traversed, to assuage fatigue, and to dispel danger. In the gardens of Venezia, poets will assemble to form a chorus vested with the power of the word, the groundswell of recital and spiritual healing. Koyo wrote in 2000, "In all beginnings there are words. Words are bridges to the other. Words are revelation to oneself. Words hang in the air, move from tongues to ears au gré des vents. Words penetrate the soil as clandestine fertilizer, their sounds, rhythms, and melodies perfuming the air." In the Applied Art Pavilion of the Arsenale, Gala Horace Kim was selected by Koyo for the Applied Arts Pavilion in the Arsenale, developed in collaboration with the Victoria and Albert Museum. Horace Kim's practice engages the complex relationships between cultural artifacts, museums, and the institutional conventions that classify and narrativize their place within history. The artist project will bring together drawings, sculptures, and video that reflect her ongoing and long-standing engagement with frameworks of conservation and the processes by which different actors in the museum field, including conservators and curators, shape the meaning and function of cultural objects. In so doing, Horace Kim's investigations resonate with the exhibitions looking aslant at the archive. At Forte Marghera, the artists Temitayo Ogumbiyi, Uriel Orlo, and Fabrice Aragno are extending the proposition of In Minor Keys to the mainland with projects that invite wandering, play, interaction, relaxation. On the lawns, Ogumbiyi's undulating sculpture offers visitors a place to lay down and reflect, while Orlo's botanical maps look at La Biennale through the prism of plants. And inside the historic fort building, Aragno presents a radical reinterpretation of Jean-Luc Godard's The Image Book, expanding the moving image into 3 dimensions. The visual identity for In Minor Keys, along with the catalog design, have been created by Clarissa Herbst and Alexander Egger, following Koyo's selection of Herbst, with whom she had a long connection dating back to the Zurich alternative scene in the late 1980s and early 1990s. The design draws on the long-standing universal notions of the white banner and on komorebi, the Japanese term that designates the shifting and dappled effect of light filtered through leaves to convey, for example, the relief that is found under the shelter of a tree. Declined in shades of gray with subtle tonal gradients that balance evanescence and permanence, expressed on posters and signage and moving textile banners, the design aims for clarity and impact while connoting natural and cosmic modes of perception. Finally, on the catalog. It was very important to Koyo that the catalog for In Minor Keys stand not only as a robust contribution to the archive, but also an example of the collaborative, cross-disciplinary, and intuitive mode of making that she convened across formats and settings. In the catalog, this has meant, number one, centering artists with 4-page spreads, which affords space for a substantive short essay with a concise version in the short guide, as well as studio or sketch or process images that convey a little bit the ideas and the work life that is behind what is on view. Artists were also invited to propose writers on their practice. This has resulted in an ensemble of over 100 authors, with texts that vary in approach and voice, but that benefit from closeness and insight. The catalog also features 8 essays that address thematics and composition, motifs, or constellations of practice in the exhibition, as well as issues in the making of an international biennial or biennale in the present time. These essays are contributed by Tandazani Dlakama, Adrian Edwards, Stephanie Hessner, Miguel Lopez, Elio Menezes, Wanda Nannybush, Oluremi C. Onabanjo, and Françoise Vergès. The book also features 5 invocations, which are original literary interventions that do not directly address the exhibition and its contents, but that are prompted by its moment and its theme and its circumstances. The authors of these texts are Ken Bugul, Teju Cole, Natalie Diaz, Frida Ekoto, and Abdeljawad Omar. Finally, there is a section of the book devoted to the schools, which features texts from each school, as well as images and original texts that address their method and their presentation. Issa Sam and Beverly Buchanan also receive extended treatment in the book, which continues the impulse of the shrines to think with their practice and legacy beyond the retrospective model. So for some, this includes a text by Simon Njami, a dialogue between Koyo and Sam, as well as texts by Adrian Edwards and Elena Filipovic. For Beverly Buchanan, we have interventions by Professor Patricia Ekpo, Park MacArthur and Jennifer Burris, and a conversation between Lucy Lippard and Lowry Stokes Sims, as well as notes and drawings by each artist. Together, the catalog, like the exhibition in its entirety, operates in the manner that Koyo set forth and exemplified. Rigorous, yet plural, intuitive, yet intentional, determinately polyvocal, and at the same time, entirely hers. Before we hand back to Cristiana and Presidente, as a team, we want to express appreciation and thanks to a number of people. There will be many more and in more detail when the exhibition finally opens, but it is not too soon. To thank Wolf Architects, Ilse and Heinrich Wolf and their team, Karin Trengov, Anne Meyer, Frank Lechapa, Poloko Leteka, Leila Peterson, and Daniela Brintis. The designers, Clarissa Herbst and Alexander Egger. We also want to thank Nicholas Davies, Aruna de Souza, Nav Bhatia, Judith Pinero, and a very special thanks for extra dedication and crucial support to Claire Brocco. We finally want to thank the entire team of the Biennale di Venezia. I don't need to tell you that making a Biennale is an enormous collective enterprise and cannot happen without a deep integration of the teams. And we honor and respect the labor and the time and the collective genius of every person involved in the team of La Biennale, including all the people on the production team, the artist liaisons, who have a particularly important role, the editorial team, the sponsorship team, the archive team, and last but not least, the press office with our dear Cristiana Constanza, to whom we now give back the floor.
Thank you. I now invite on stage Matteo Morbidi, Heritage and Philanthropy Director of Bulgari, exclusive partner of our exhibition. Good morning, everybody. On behalf of Maison Bulgari and the Bulgari Foundation, I want to thank La Biennale di Venezia, the curatorial team for the moving contribution, and President Buttafuoco for the warm welcome. Being exclusive partner for the next 3 editions of Biennale Arte is both an honor and a responsibility. Being able to be closer to one of the most prestigious cultural institutions in the world is an important step that strengthens the relationship with art Bulgaria has had over the last few years. This partnership is a natural expansion of a journey that has seen us committed and in a structural way in our support to contemporary art, which is one of the pillars of the foundation we represent. A maison with an history that is rooted in Italian history must have the possibility of building a cultural heritage and to support artistic freedom. For more than a century, Biennale and Bulgari both have contributed to reimagine art and beauty in a constant dialogue among different cultures. Biennale is an institution with which Bulgari has a common vision. They were created almost at the same time. Maison Bulgari was established in 1864. Biennale to 1895, our maison has always trusted art as a universal language. Bulgari trusts art as an expression of freedom. Supporting art means supporting freedom of expression and thought. This partnership is a unique chance to support creativity, to confirm our aspiration to excellency, putting together craftsmanship and a thrust to the future. We start a new chapter in the story of our maison today with our presence in Venice. Bulgari will be present in the Giardini, in Spazio Esedra at the Giardini, where it will present an exhibition dedicated to Lotus Khan, a Canadian artist who has devised an installation on time and its evolution. Thank you. I now invite on stage the president of La Biennale di Venezia, Pietrangelo Buttafuoco. Thank you. I start my greeting, my welcome. I start by thanking the Ministry of Culture, Alessandro Giuli, and all the local institutions, the City of Venice, the Veneto region, the Superintendency for Archaeology, Fine Arts, Landscape of the Metropolitan City of Venice, and our neighbors, the Italian Navy. Our gratitude for recalling the universal nature of art through languages and cultures. Our gratitude goes to Bulgari, exclusive partner of the exhibition. We thank our main sponsor, Illy Cafe and American Express, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Vela Venezia Unica, Quattro Gatti Gin. Our thanks to Cleary Gottlieb Steen and Hamilton. Our gratitude to RAI, that is media partner, and we'll follow the event with the dedicated offer from television to radio and the web as well. And we thank our donors, the organizations and the institutions who have contributed to the success of Biennale Arte 2026. I thank you all, Gabe, Rasha, Marie-Hélène, Siddhartha, Rory. I thank the team that has been able to continue a thread that had never been interrupted. I send my greetings to Philip Mal, the partner of Koyo, Kouoh. I want to thank Jorn Brandmeier and his team in La Fondazione, la Biennale di Venezia. He has accompanied this very sensitive process, sensitive and difficult, because what is sensitive is precious. I thank Cristiana Costanzo for being here with me. And my gratitude and my thanks go to Koyo Kouoh. When I asked her to join me here in Giustinian, we met close to an extraordinary weeping fig tree, an extraordinary tree because my predecessor, Paolo Baratta, was able to keep it in a wonderful form, and then it was inherited by Roberto Cicuto. That fig tree has accompanied the labor and the fatigue of the different presidents of La Biennale. And why was it? Because there we had the perfect alchemy, the magic in our meeting. She told me, I would expect everything, but being summoned here in Venice by you to guide the international art exhibition. And this is the untold that then we told to one another. And this is the chemical precipitate of prejudice. We laughed about that. We laughed about that because with her being straightforward in her approach, she told me, you are Sicilian, therefore you are African as well. And it was the smile of those who know, and a first step to get to what really keeps us together, the center, the clever moustache of Gurdjieff that peeked out among us. Dear Stefano, Gurdjieff's moustache, the permanent center of gravity. Let us look for it together. Let us look for it together, she told me. And going out, she posted on Instagram a story with Venice and the permanent center of gravity, a secret way of understanding each other, of speaking to each other. The cure. And I'm looking at Professor Zecchi, who, over and beyond his institutional role, is also a philosopher. The cure that can explain an active commitment in the world, in its being the planning of being there and meeting in this world, in our relationship with the others. The cure. That was the subject we started from in our journey with Koyo. But we have that fig tree, that weeping fig tree, a real tree. And that tree makes us think of sowing. The tree that starts moving and walks away. And I would suggest to you all a book by Daniele Zovi, a general of the Forest Guard. The title is Alberi sapienti e antiche foreste, Wise Trees and Ancient Forests. I had read it just before meeting Koyo, So the fig tree, plants, forests, all of them starting a journey. The image is the image of altars, ara in its Latin meaning, an altar, a sanctuary for religion, and I am inserting a dash referring to the Latin etymology, keeping things together, res, things bound together. This was my meeting with Koyo, and now I want to thank her because that night I dreamt of the cover of Abraxas, a record by Carlos Santana. And again, I'm turning to Stefano Zecchi. And I went back to the notes of Soul Sacrifice, a song that was celebrated in Woodstock, the exact result of Dionysicism, and an extremely Doric exhibition. Like this is hard to imagine. We have poets in a procession, and men live in poetry. We have a tree, roots, seeds, forests that are moving with Koyo here in Venice. Thank you all. We are approaching the conclusion of this meeting that, as you have seen, was entirely dedicated to Kouoh's project. We are faced with an unprecedented situation. National participations and collateral events of this 61st International Art Exhibition will be announced on Wednesday, the 4th of March. The international jury, as we normally do, will be unveiled a few weeks before the opening of the exhibition in April. I would like to remember that for this edition, the Golden Lions for Lifetime Achievement will not be awarded, as Kouoh did not have time to define them. Considering the exceptional situation, we will not give interviews today, nor will we give interviews in the next weeks. And this to respect the process that is still underway with the curatorial team, for the desire to give back the wealth and the complexity of this exhibition when it will open. So the President and Kouoh's team will be glad to meet you in May when the exhibition will be open, and you will discuss with them facing the works and the exhibition layout. You can get, from this moment onwards, the press communique on our website, and you will find all necessary information on Biennale sessions, on educational activities in La Biennale, and our commitment to sustainability. And here I close our presentation. Thank you for being here so numerous. Thank you for following us online. See you again in May.